I opened the creaking door to my grandmother's attic, a place I hadn't ventured into since childhood. Dust danced in the dim light, and the air held a peculiar, musty scent. As I climbed the stairs, I couldn't help but remember her stories about a cursed doll that had been hidden away here for generations. My grandmother, bless her soul, had always been full of tales about the supernatural. She spoke of a doll, Emily, that was said to be cursed by a vengeful spirit. It was a story that had both terrified and intrigued me as a child, and now, as an adult, I couldn't resist the urge to uncover the truth behind it. The attic was a treasure trove of forgotten memories and discarded heirlooms. I rummaged through boxes of yellowed photographs and cracked porcelain figurines, each one telling a piece of my family's history. But what I sought was something much more sinister. Finally, in a dusty corner, beneath a tattered quilt, I found a wooden chest. My heart raced as I opened it, revealing a porcelain doll with dark, lifeless eyes. It was Emily, the cursed doll of my grandmother's stories. I couldn't explain the unease that washed over me as I reached for the doll. Its pale face seemed to be frozen in a perpetual scowl, and its dress was tattered and stained. My grandmother's warnings echoed in my mind, but curiosity got the better of me. I held Emily in my hands, and the chill that ran down my spine was palpable. I wondered if the curse was real or just a product of my grandmother's vivid imagination. Carefully, I placed the doll on a table and began my research. The more I delved into the history of Emily, the more disturbing the story became. It was said that the doll was created in the 18th century by a talented but reclusive toymaker named Samuel Blackwood. Legend had it that he had made a pact with a malevolent spirit to infuse his creations with a lifelike quality that bordered on the eerie. As I read on, I discovered accounts of strange occurrences tied to the doll. People claimed to have heard whispered voices in the dead of night and seen the doll's eyes follow them across the room. Some even swore that Emily had caused misfortune and tragedy in their lives. The more I learned, the more convinced I became that there was some truth to the curse. But I couldn't bring myself to part with the doll. It held a dark fascination over me, and I needed to know more. Nights in the attic became a routine for me. I would sit with Emily, my heart pounding, waiting for any sign of her curse. At first, nothing happened, and I began to doubt the stories. But then, the nightmares began. I would wake up in a cold sweat, images of Emily tormenting me in my sleep. She would beckon me with her porcelain hand, her eyes glowing with an unholy light. I could feel her malevolent presence, a force that sought to consume me. My life outside the attic started to unravel. My work suffered, and my friends noticed the bags under my eyes and the pallor of my skin. I was becoming obsessed with Emily, unable to escape her haunting grip. One night, as I sat in the attic with Emily, the room plunged into darkness. The only illumination came from her eyes, which now glowed with an eerie intensity. It was as if the spirit that had cursed her had awakened. I tried to flee, but an unseen force held me in place. Emily's voice, a chilling whisper, filled the room. She spoke of the torment she had endured for centuries, trapped in the doll's fragile form. She promised me power and eternal life if I would set her free. Terrified and desperate, I agreed, not realizing the true price of my bargain. With a burst of malevolent energy, Emily's porcelain form shattered, and her spirit consumed me. I became the cursed doll, forever trapped, forever tormented. Now, I sit in the attic, a prisoner of my own curiosity. My dark eyes follow those who dare to enter, and my voice whispers in their dreams, luring them into my cursed existence. Beware the attic, for it is a place of darkness and despair, where the cursed doll Emily waits to claim her next victim. I couldn't resist the urge to tell you about the cursed dress that has haunted my life for the past year. It all began innocently enough, on a gloomy day in autumn when I stumbled upon a quaint vintage shop in the heart of town. The shop, named Eternal Elegance, had an old-world charm about it that drew me in. I had always been fascinated by vintage fashion, and this seemed like the perfect place to find a unique addition to my collection. As I stepped inside, a bell above the door tinkled, announcing my arrival. The shop was dimly lit, and the air was heavy with the scent of old fabrics and mothballs. Racks upon racks of clothes stretched out before me, each garment seemingly frozen in time. I couldn't help but feel like I had stepped into a different era. My eyes were immediately drawn to a dress displayed on a mannequin near the back of the store. It was a breathtakingly beautiful gown, unlike anything I had ever seen before. The fabric was a deep, velvety black, and it shimmered with an otherworldly glow. The dress had intricate lace detailing that seemed to dance with every flicker of the dim store lights. I approached the dress with a mixture of awe and trepidation. It was as if the dress had a life of its own, beckoning to me, calling me closer. The shopkeeper, an elderly woman with a knowing smile, appeared at my side. "That dress," she said in a hushed tone, "it's a special piece. Said to bring both beauty and misfortune to its wearer." I was intrigued by her words but brushed them off as superstition. I had never believed in curses or the supernatural. To me, it was just a stunning dress waiting to be worn. I decided to try it on. The moment I slipped into the dress, I felt a strange chill run down my spine. It was as if the very fabric was alive, wrapping itself around me with an almost possessive embrace. But the sight that greeted me in the mirror was mesmerizing. I looked like a ghostly vision of elegance and grace. I purchased the dress without hesitation, despite the shopkeeper's warning. She gave me a small, knowing nod as I left the store, and I couldn't help but wonder if there was more to her words than met the eye. The first few times I wore the dress, everything seemed perfect. I received compliments wherever I went, and it seemed as though I had captured a piece of magic from another time. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to notice subtle changes in my life. Strange occurrences started happening around me. Objects would move on their own, and eerie whispers would fill the silence of my apartment. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was never truly alone. My once peaceful nights turned into a series of haunting nightmares. The more I wore the dress, the more I felt its grip on me. It was as if it demanded my attention, my devotion. I started to avoid it, burying it deep in my closet, but I could still feel its presence, a lurking malevolence. One night, unable to resist its pull any longer, I put on the cursed dress again. That night, my world descended into madness. I saw visions of a time long past, of a woman who had worn the dress before me. Her life had been one of tragedy and sorrow, and I could feel her pain as if it were my own. Desperate to break free from the dress's curse, I returned to the vintage shop. The shopkeeper was waiting for me, her eyes filled with sympathy. "I tried to warn you," she said softly. "The dress is cursed with the souls of all its previous wearers. It feeds on their pain and suffering, and it will never let you go." Tears filled my eyes as I realized the truth of her words. I begged her for a way to break the curse, but she had none to offer. The dress had claimed me as its own, and there was no escape. And so, here I am, recounting my tale in the hopes that someone will heed my warning. Beware the cursed dress that promises beauty but brings only despair. It will haunt your life until the end of your days, as it has haunted mine. I stood in front of the antique store, drawn to it by an inexplicable force. Its dusty windows concealed a treasure trove of forgotten relics, and among them, a cursed mirror that would haunt my every waking moment. The mirror, tarnished and ornate, hung in a dark corner of the shop. It called out to me with an eerie allure. As I approached, I noticed its frame, adorned with intricate carvings of grotesque faces contorted in agony. A chill ran down my spine, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. The old shopkeeper, his eyes heavy with wisdom and sadness, saw my fascination and approached. "You're drawn to the mirror, aren't you?" he asked, his voice trembling. I nodded, unable to speak. He sighed, a sound heavy with resignation. "It's a cursed object, you know. Many have possessed it, and none have found happiness. I couldn't resist its pull. Ignoring the shopkeeper's warning, I purchased the mirror and hung it in my bedroom. That night, I stared into its depths, and a feeling of dread washed over me. It was as if the mirror held the key to a world beyond our own. As days turned into weeks, strange things began to happen. Shadows moved in the reflection, whispering voices echoed in the darkness of my room, and nightmares plagued my sleep. I was consumed by an insatiable curiosity, an urge to unlock the mirror's secrets. One evening, I saw a figure in the mirror, a ghastly apparition with hollow eyes and outstretched arms. It beckoned me, and I couldn't resist its call.
Hi guys,
My hand reached out, and the moment our fingertips touched the glass, I was pulled into the mirror's cursed realm. I found myself in a desolate, nightmarish landscape. The sky was a sickly shade of green, and twisted trees with gnarled branches loomed overhead. I was not alone. Other lost souls wandered, their eyes filled with despair. Desperation consumed me as I realized I was trapped in this accursed world. There was no escape. The mirror had ensnared me, and I was condemned to roam this nightmarish realm for all eternity. Time lost its meaning, and I forgot who I once was. The mirror's curse had eroded my identity, leaving me a hollow shell of a person. The whispers of tormented souls became my only companions, their stories of woe etched into my mind. In the real world, my disappearance had not gone unnoticed. Friends and family searched for me, but the cursed mirror concealed my existence. I was trapped in a realm beyond their reach, a prisoner of my own insatiable curiosity. Years passed, or perhaps it was centuries, I could no longer discern. The mirror's curse had stripped away my humanity, leaving me a spectral being. I longed for release, for an end to this eternal torment. Then, one fateful day, a new face appeared in the mirror, a young woman with a determined look in her eyes. She had come to the antique store, drawn by the same inexplicable force that had ensnared me. The shopkeeper, his eyes heavy with sorrow, tried to dissuade her, but she insisted on purchasing the mirror. As she hung it in her bedroom, I watched with a glimmer of hope. Perhaps she could break the curse, release me from this prison. I reached out, my spectral hand brushing against the glass, trying to convey a warning. But the young woman, unaware of the mirror's malevolence, stared into its depths with the same curiosity that had doomed me. The mirror's power pulled her in, and I watched as her form vanished into its cursed realm. Now, we wander together in the desolate landscape, two lost souls ensnared by the cursed mirror. Our only solace is the knowledge that someday, someone else will come, drawn by the mirror's allure. And perhaps, just perhaps, they will have the strength to break the curse and free us from this eternal nightmare. I remember the day we brought that cursed cabinet into our home. It was an antique, a relic from another time, with intricate carvings and an aura of mystery that drew us in like moths to a flame. Little did we know the darkness it would unleash upon us. My wife, Sarah, and I had always been avid collectors of vintage furniture. Our small farmhouse was a testament to our passion, filled with pieces that held stories of their own. But the cabinet was different. We found it at an estate sale, tucked away in a dusty corner of a dimly lit room. Its price was unusually low, and the elderly seller seemed eager to be rid of it. We should have taken that as a warning. The day we brought it home, our lives took a chilling turn. At first, it was subtle. The cabinet stood in our living room, and we'd hear faint whispers in the dead of night. We'd wake up to find it open just a crack, though we always swore we had shut it tight before bed. The air around it grew icy cold, even on the hottest summer days. Still, we dismissed these odd occurrences as mere coincidences. As days turned into weeks, the cabinet's malevolence escalated. Strange symbols began appearing on its surface, as if etched by unseen hands. The whispers grew louder, more sinister, and we started having terrible nightmares. In them, we were trapped inside the cabinet, surrounded by darkness and tormented by shadows that had no form. Our once idyllic life became a waking nightmare. One evening, As Sarah was dusting the cabinet, she screamed. I rushed to her side to find her clutching her hand, blood oozing from a deep cut. She swore that the cabinet had bitten her, that its wooden jaws had snapped shut on her hand. I didn't believe her, but the dark stain on the cabinet where her blood had soaked in was undeniable. We decided to get rid of the cabinet, to banish it from our lives. But no matter what we did, it always found its way back into our home. We'd take it to the farthest corner of the woods, only to discover it back in our living room the next morning. We even tried burning it, but the flames refused to consume it, as if it were protected by some malevolent force. Our friends and family began to notice the toll it was taking on us. We grew pale and gaunt, our eyes haunted by the horrors we'd witnessed. We became reclusive, afraid that the curse would spread to anyone who entered our home. We were prisoners in our own house, the cabinet our tormentor. One night, I couldn't take it any longer. I confronted the cabinet, shouting at it to leave us alone, release us from its grip. In response, the room glowed with another golden shriek, and the cabinet shook violently. I stumbled back, a gaping black hole. From within, twisted, skeletal hands reached out, groping for me. I ran, but the house had become the whispers grew deafening, and I felt hands closing in on me from all sides. I was trapped, suffocating in darkness, when suddenly, I heard Sarah's voice calling my name. I followed her voice, and together, we found our way out of that living nightmare. We fled our home, never looking back, leaving the cursed cabinet behind. We now live a quiet life far from that accursed place. The nightmares have mostly stopped, but we are forever scarred by our ordeal. We often wonder what happened to the cabinet, and it still waits in the shadows, hungry for its next victim. The memory of that cursed cabinet still haunts our city, a reminder that some relics are best left undisturbed, and that evil can lurk in the most innocuous of places. The wind howled through the old, decrepit trees, casting eerie shadows on the path before me. It was Halloween night, and I had foolishly agreed to explore the abandoned asylum at the edge of town with my friends. We had heard countless chilling tales about the place, and curiosity got the better of us. As we approached the imposing building, its dark silhouette seemed to loom over us like a malevolent presence. The moonlight revealed shattered windows and crumbling walls, making it even more foreboding. My heart pounded in my chest as we stepped inside. The air inside was heavy with the stench of decay, and the floor creaked ominously beneath our feet. Graffiti covered the walls, telling stories of those who had ventured here before us. A cold sweat broke out on my brow as we moved deeper into the asylum's gloomy depths. We reached a corridor with several doors leading off of it. Each door had a small, barred window, and I couldn't help but peer inside one. What I saw made my blood run cold. A flicker of movement, a fleeting glimpse of something inhuman, sent shivers down my spine. I quickly turned away, urging my friends to keep moving. As we continued down the corridor, strange whispers seemed to echo in the air around us. My friends exchanged nervous glances, but we pressed on, drawn by an irresistible curiosity. We reached a room at the end of the hallway, its door slightly ajar. Inside, an old, rusted wheelchair sat in the center, surrounded by a circle of candles. The flickering flames cast eerie shadows that danced on the peeling wallpaper. Suddenly, the room grew colder, and a chilling breeze swept through the open door. The candles sputtered and went out one by one, plunging us into darkness. Panic set in as we fumbled for our flashlights, but before we could regain our bearings, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air. It was one of my friends. We rushed back into the corridor and found her trembling in terror. She stammered that she had seen a figure in a tattered hospital gown, standing in the darkness, its eyes glowing with malevolence. None of us had seen it, but the fear in her eyes was enough to convince us to leave immediately. We retraced our steps, our flashlights casting long, quivering shadows as we hurried through the asylum's labyrinthine hall. It felt as though the very walls were closing in on us, as though the building itself were alive and malevolent. We finally reached the entrance, gasping for breath. Just as we thought we were safe, the heavy wooden door slammed shut with a deafening crash. We were trapped. Panic swept over us like a tidal wave, and we pounded on the door, screaming for help. But there was no response, only the haunting sound of laughter echoing through the darkness. We huddled together in the inky blackness, the laughter growing louder and more deranged. It seemed to be coming from all around us, as though the very walls themselves were mocking our fear. I felt a cold hand on my shoulder, and I spun around, expecting to see one of my friends. But there was no one there. I screamed and stumbled backward, crashing into the wall. As I scrambled to my feet, I saw it, a figure in a tattered hospital gown, its eyes glowing with an unholy light. It grinned, revealing rows of jagged, yellow teeth. The asylum had come to life, and we were at its mercy. In that moment, I knew we were not alone. The spirits of the tormented souls who had once inhabited this place had awakened, and they hungered for our fear. As the laughter closed in around us, I clung to the hope that somehow, we would make it out of that living nightmare alive. But on that fateful Halloween night, in the heart of the abandoned asylum, I feared that our fate was sealed. I cautiously approached the old, decrepit house at the end of the street. Its eerie presence sent shivers down my spine, yet curiosity compelled me to continue. As I reached the front porch, I noticed an ancient doorbell that seemed strangely out of place, an ornate piece that seemed to belong to another era. Hesitating, I pressed the button, and a chilling sensation washed over me. The air grew colder, and the atmosphere seemed to shift. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a dimly lit hallway. The air was heavy with an unsettling silence, broken only by the faint sound of whispers that seemed to echo from within. Against my better judgment, I stepped inside, my heart pounding in my chest. The door slammed shut behind me with a resounding thud, causing me to jump in alarm. I ventured further into the house, my footsteps echoing on the creaky wooden floor. The walls seemed to be adorned with peculiar paintings that depicted eerie scenes. A moonlit forest where shadows danced, a desolate graveyard with mist swirling around gravestones. Each step I took seemed to amplify the feeling of being watched, as if unseen eyes were following my every move. My heart raced as I reached a grand, spiral staircase. The sound of a faint melody drifted from somewhere above, haunting and melancholic. With a deep breath, I ascended the staircase, my hand trailing along the ornate banister. The whispers grew louder, their unintelligible words sending chills down my spine. Reaching the top of the stairs, I entered a corridor that seemed to stretch endlessly in both directions.
Hi guys,
doors lined the hallway, each one seemingly beckoning me to open it. I chose one at random and turned the handle. The room beyond was shrouded in darkness, but a soft glow emanated from a corner. As I approached, I saw an antique mirror, its surface reflecting a flickering candle that stood atop a dusty table. I stared at my own reflection, my breath catching in my throat as the image before me began to morph. My reflection twisted and contorted, its features warping into something grotesque and otherworldly. I stumbled back in horror, my heart pounding in my ears. With a frantic glance around the room, I realized that the door I had entered through was gone, replaced by a smooth expanse of wall. Panic set in as I realized I was trapped. The room seemed to close in on me, the air growing thick with a suffocating sense of dread. The whispers that had followed me throughout the house now surrounded me, their voices a cacophony of eerie murmurs that seemed to seep into my very being. Time lost all meaning as I struggled to find a way out. Days or perhaps even weeks passed as I wandered the endless corridors, each room I entered becoming a distorted nightmare. The doorbell's haunting ring echoed in my ears, a constant reminder of the source of my torment. As my sanity began to fray, I stumbled upon a room unlike any other. The walls were adorned with countless photographs, each one depicting a different person. Their faces contorted in terror, their eyes filled with heat, began to emit a soft, mournful wail. The doorbell's toll joined in, its haunting melody intertwining with the cries of the trapped souls. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the room fell silent. The door before me swung open, revealing a blinding light that seemed to pierce through the darkness. With a mix of fear and hope, I stepped through the threshold, leaving the nightmarish house behind. As I emerged into the daylight, I realized that the house had vanished, as if it had never existed. Though I had escaped its clutches, the memories of that sinister place still haunt my dreams. The doorbell's chilling ring lingers in my mind, a constant reminder of the terrors I witnessed within those cursed walls. And so, the tale of the creepiest doorbell remains etched in my memory, a haunting reminder that some mysteries are best left undisturbed. As I stepped into the dimly lit arcade, a shiver ran down my spine. The quivering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows on the worn-out carpet, and the faint hum of the machine seemed to echo through the narrow aisles. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. I approached an old, rusty coin-operated game tucked away in the corner. Its faded artwork depicted a sinister-looking clown grinning malevolently, beckoning players to try their luck. Hesitating for a moment, I reluctantly inserted a coin and the game sprang to life with a disconcerting jingle. The screen displayed a series of targets that I had to hit with a virtual slingshot. As I aimed and fired, the mechanical clatter of the slingshot merged with a haunting melody that seemed to seep into the very core of my being. With each successful hit, the clown's grin seemed to widen, and an unsettling laughter filled the air. Unable to shake off the unease, I decided to explore the rest of the arcade. The games appeared almost frozen in time, relics from a bygone era. A faded sign above an archway announced the entrance to the Hall of Mirrors. I hesitated for a moment before stepping through, feeling a sense of foreboding. Inside, the mirrors distorted my reflection in bizarre ways. My elongated limbs and contorted face stared back at me, and I stumbled through the maze-like passages, trying to find my way out. But the more I tried to navigate, the more lost I became. Panic began to set in as I realized that the mirrors were playing tricks on my mind. Finally, I burst through a door and found myself in a room that felt even colder than the rest of the arcade. In the center of the room stood an old-fashioned fortune-telling machine, its glass eyes gleaming eerily. I approached cautiously and dropped a coin into the slot. The machine whirred to life, and a mechanical voice spoke, "Seeker of secrets, I shall reveal your fate." The room seemed to darken further as the machine's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. Images flashed before my eyes, glimpses of the past, present, and future intertwined in a surreal dance. My heart raced as the visions continued, showing me moments of joy and sorrow, love and loss. But the final image froze me in my tracks, a shadowy figure standing in front of the arcade's entrance, beckoning me to follow. The figure's eyes glowed with an unnatural intensity, and a sense of dread washed over me. I stumbled back from the fortune-telling machine, desperate to escape the nightmarish visions. As I turned to leave, a cold gust of wind swept through the room, extinguishing the lights. I found myself in total darkness, disoriented and trembling. The sensation of being watched intensified, and I could hear faint whispers echoing around me. Summoning all my courage, I fumbled for my phone and turned on its flashlight. The narrow beam of light revealed a path leading to the exit. As I walked briskly through the arcade, the whispering grew louder, accompanied by the sound of echoing footsteps that seemed to follow me relentlessly. Finally, I burst through the entrance and stumbled out into the crisp night air, my heart pounding in my chest. I glanced back at the arcade, its exterior now devoid of any malevolent presence. The neon lights that had once seemed inviting now flickered innocently, casting a soft glow on the pavement. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had narrowly escaped something sinister within those walls. As I walked away, I couldn't help but wonder if the arcade held a dark secret, a portal to a realm beyond our understanding. And even though I had escaped its clutches, a lingering fear gnawed at the edges of my mind, a reminder that some mysteries are best left untouched. I still remember the day I stumbled upon the listing for Hawthorne Cottage on Airbnb. Its old world charm, nestled deep within the woods, promised a perfect weekend getaway. Little did I know, that innocent decision would plunge me into a nightmare I'd never forget. Arriving at dusk, the fading light cast eerie shadows across the time-worn facade. As I stepped inside, a shiver ran down my spine. The air felt thick, like a palpable presence watched me. Ignoring my unease, I unpacked and settled in. Nightfall brought a chorus of unsettling sounds, a faint whispering breeze, floorboards creaking in rhythm to some unseen entity's footsteps. Each room seemed colder than the last, and the flickering lights played tricks on my senses. The antique mirror in the hallway reflected distorted images that sent shivers down my spine. I had barely drifted into a restless sleep when a loud crash jolted me awake. Heart pounding, I followed the noise to the kitchen. The sight that greeted me froze my blood. All the cabinets had swung open, their contents strewn across the floor. Panic set in as I realized I was alone in this remote cottage, with no logical explanation for the chaos before me. The next day, I ventured into town seeking solace in human interaction. The locals' hushed whispers told stories of Hawthorne Cottage's dark history, a place once owned by a reclusive family with a tragic past. A chill ran down my spine as I learned about their untimely deaths and rumored connection to the occult. Returning to the cottage, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched.
Hi guys, thank you so much for watching.
The walls seemed to whisper secrets, and shadows
to
danced at the corners of my vision.
See you in the next video.
Determined to uncover the truth, I delved into old books, desperate to understand the enigma that was Hawthorne Cottage. Night after night, I experienced restless dreams, vivid nightmares that blurred the line between reality and the supernatural. The walls pulsed with a malevolent energy, and I could almost hear the faint echoes of anguished cries. The more I uncovered, the more I felt myself being pulled into a web of terror. One evening, a storm raged outside, and the power went out. Armed with only a candle, I wandered the dimly lit halls. My heart stopped as I saw a figure, shadowy, ethereal, standing at the end of the corridor. Fear clung to me like a vice as the figure glided closer, its eyes locking onto mine with an otherworldly intensity. Frozen in terror, I could do nothing as it whispered words I couldn't comprehend. The air grew colder, and I felt a presence enveloping me, suffocating me. Desperation and dread swirled within me, and with all my might, I managed to break free from its grasp and stumbled back into my room. The following morning, I packed my bags, my mind determined to escape the malevolence that had consumed Hawthorne Cottage. As I drove away, a haunting feeling lingered, and I couldn't shake the idea that I had narrowly escaped something far more sinister than I could fathom. To this day, I shudder at the memories of that weekend, an experience that forever changed my perception of the world. The scars left by Hawthorne Cottage's dark secrets are etched into my mind, a chilling reminder that some mysteries are better left buried in the shadows.
As the sun set behind the dense forest, my friends and I arrived at our secluded camping spot. The eerie silence enveloped us, and an unsettling feeling crept up my spine. I brushed it off as nerves and set up our tents near the glistening lake. As the darkness grew, we huddled around the crackling campfire, trying to shake off the feeling of being watched. We laughed and joked, but the shadows danced on the trees, whispering secrets that sent shivers down our spines. After a while, we decided to share ghost stories to add to the thrill of the night. But as I began my tale, a sudden cold breeze extinguished the flames, plunging us into darkness. Panic filled our hearts as we scrambled to relight the fire, but the matches refused to ignite. That's when we heard it, a faint rustling from the bushes nearby. We froze, our eyes darting in every direction, unable to see anything in the pitch-black night. A guttural growl echoed through the woods, and our hearts pounded in unison. Without warning, something unseen lunged at us from the darkness. We could feel its hot breath on our necks, but it disappeared as quickly as it appeared. Fear consumed us as we realized we were not alone. In a desperate attempt to escape, we stumbled through the forest, branches clawing at us, and our breaths labored. Each step felt like an eternity, and the forest seemed to close in on us, suffocating us with its malevolence. As dawn approached, we reached an abandoned cabin in the woods, its decaying walls exuding an ominous energy. Exhausted and terrified, we sought refuge inside, hoping to find safety, but the cabin was not a sanctuary, it was a place of nightmares. Strange sounds echoed through its corridors, and the walls seemed to whisper to us, recounting tales of horror and despair. We found strange symbols etched on the floor and mysterious objects strewn around, as if the place was a shrine to something sinister. As we gathered in one room, trying to find solace in each other's presence, an otherworldly chill filled the air. A ghostly figure materialized before us, its eyes glowing with an unnatural fire. The apparition let out a yell, blood-curdling scream that echoed through our souls, leaving us paralyzed with fear. Time lost all meaning as we were trapped in the cabin's malevolent grasp. The ghostly figure tormented us with visions of our worst nightmares, exploiting our deepest fears. It was as if the cabin fed off our terror, growing stronger with each passing moment. Days turned into nights, and we were unable to escape the cabin's clutches. We grew weaker, haunted by the relentless torment. The ghostly figure whispered malicious promises of eternal suffering, and hope seemed to vanish from our hearts. In a final act of desperation, we devised a plan to break free from the sinister shackles. We gathered whatever courage we had left and faced the apparition head-on. Through sheer determination, we managed to banish the malevolent spirit back into the depths of the unknown. Exhausted and traumatized, we stumbled out of the cursed cabin and into the first light of day. The sun's rays felt like a warm embrace after the endless darkness. As we emerged from the woods, we vowed never to speak of that harrowing camping trip again. But the horrors we experienced that night have left an indelible mark on our souls. A reminder that evil lurks in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to strike. And so, I share this tale as a warning to those who dare to venture into the unknown. Beware the darkness, for it conceals more than what meets the eye. My name is Alex, and I never imagined my ordinary trip to the Mall of America would turn into a living nightmare. It was a rainy evening when my friends and I decided to explore the colossal mall. Little did we know, the darkness and horror that awaited us. As we ventured deeper into the maze-like mall, we noticed something peculiar. The familiar buzz of shoppers and laughter faded, replaced by an eerie silence. The lights flickered ominously, casting long, menacing shadows on the walls. A shiver ran down my spine, but my curiosity kept me going. We stumbled upon an abandoned section of the mall, once bustling with life, now covered in cobwebs and decay. Strange graffiti adorned the walls, depicting haunting figures and cryptic messages. As we turned a corner, a loud crash echoed through the halls, startling us all. Terrified, we quickened our pace, trying to find our way back to the main area. However, the mall seemed to shift and change its layout, leading us deeper into the heart of darkness. Panic set in as we realized we were lost, trapped in this haunted abyss. Through the silence, we could hear faint whispers, almost like ghostly weeping. Shows of past visitors trapped in this cursed place. With every step, the whispers grew louder, and we could discern snippets of distress and despair. It was as if the mall itself was trying to communicate its tragic history. As we tried to navigate the ever-changing corridors, we encountered strange apparitions, shadowy figures that seemed to be watching our every move. Fear consumed us, and our group started to fracture as each member fought to survive in this horrifying ordeal. I decided to venture alone, hoping to find an exit or someone who could help us escape this nightmare. In the distance, I spotted a faint light emanating from an old, rusted door. I rushed toward it, praying it would lead me to safety. Pushing open the creaking door, I found myself in a derelict storage room filled with broken mannequins. Each one was eerily disfigured, some with missing limbs or cracked faces. I couldn't shake the feeling that these lifeless figures were watching me with malevolent eyes. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me, sealing my fate within this nightmarish room. Panic overwhelmed me as I pounded on the door, screaming for my friends to save me. But my cries fell on deaf ears as the mall swallowed them whole, leaving me alone in this terrifying realm. Days turned into weeks as I roamed the haunted halls, surviving on whatever I could find. My mind started playing tricks on me, and I could no longer distinguish between reality and hallucination. The spirits of the Mall of America seemed to feed on my fear, tormenting me with nightmarish visions. I witnessed unspeakable horrors, the souls of shoppers trapped in a perpetual loop of shopping, their faces twisted in terror. I saw the ghosts of employees. As the clock struck midnight, my friends and I gathered at Hillside Manor, an eerie mansion with a dark history. The moon cast long, haunting shadows across the old, weathered walls. The creaking floorboards added an eerie ambiance as we settled into our sleeping bags, ready for a night of chilling tales. I began recounting the legend of the manor, how a evil spirit haunted its halls after a gruesome murder many years ago. My friends listened intently, shivers running down their spines. Suddenly, a faint whisper echoed through the room, making us all jump. I laughed nervously, dismissing it as the wind. But as the night progressed, strange things started happening. Objects moved on their own, doors creaked open, and distant footsteps echoed through the corridors. We exchanged anxious glances, unsure if it was just our imagination playing tricks on us. Then, we heard a blood-curdling scream. We rushed to investigate, only to find a trail of fresh blood leading to the basement. Terrified, we followed the gruesome path, and as we reached the dark, damp cellar, the door slammed shut behind us, trapping us inside. Panic set in, and we fumbled for our flashlights. Shadows danced around us, and an icy chill enveloped the air. We dared not speak, fearing that something malevolent might hear us. The walls seemed to close in, and a sense of impending doom washed over us. Suddenly, eerie apparitions materialized in front of us, a woman in a torn white dress, and a sinister figure with hollow eyes. Frozen in fear, we watched as they floated towards us, their spectral forms sending shivers down our spines. We ran as fast as we could, but no matter which direction we took, we found ourselves back in the dreaded basement. It was as if the house itself was playing sinister tricks on us, refusing to let us escape its grasp. Desperate to break free, we searched for any sign of an exit. That's when we stumbled upon a hidden passage behind an old bookshelf. The dusty corridor led us deeper into the manor's heart, where the horrors seemed to intensify. Suddenly, we heard whispers all around us, taunting and threatening. The walls seemed to bleed, and the paintings came to life, their eyes following us with malicious intent. We realized we were trapped in a malevolent realm, where the past and present merged into a nightmare. One by one, my friends vanished, swallowed by the darkness, leaving me alone with the haunting spirits. Their faces contorted with rage and sorrow as they reached out to claim me as their own. I fought to keep my composure, but the terror was too overwhelming. Just as I thought it was the end, a distant memory surfaced, a tale of redemption that might break the curse. I gathered my courage and confronted the spirits, speaking words of remorse and sorrow for the tragedies of the past. Miraculously, the tormented souls began to fade away, their vengeful cries replaced with mournful whispers. The darkness lifted, and the mansion returned to its eerie but less hostile state. In the end, I managed to escape the clutches of Hillside Manor, but the scars of that night remain etched in my soul forever. I have learned that some places hold ancient pain and malevolence, and it's best to leave them undisturbed. I caution anyone who hears this tale not to dare test fate with a sleepover at Hillside Manor, for the spirits that reside there will not rest until they claim what they seek, their eternal revenge. Darkness descended upon the deep woods as I ventured into their heart, my heart pounding with trepidation. The twisted branches reached out like gnarled fingers, clutching at my sanity. The ominous silence was broken only by the rustling of unseen creatures, and a chilling wind whispered eerie secrets through the dense foliage. As I delved deeper, an overwhelming sense of foreboding surrounded me, but I couldn't resist the allure of the unknown. Shadows danced in the moonlight, and the forest floor seemed to shift beneath my feet, as if it were alive, conspiring to swallow me whole. The oppressive atmosphere began to play tricks on my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every rustle and creak sent shivers down my spine. It was as if the very essence of fear had taken shape, lurking behind every tree and hiding in the shadows. Suddenly, I stumbled upon an abandoned cabin, its decaying walls giving it an unsettling aura. I couldn't resist the urge to explore its interior, though my instincts screamed at me to flee. Inside, I found old, weathered photographs and eerie writings scrawled on the wall, hinting at a dark past that still lingered. With a growing sense of unease, I left the cabin behind and continued deeper into the woods. My flashlight's weak beam was a feeble defense against the encroaching darkness. The trees seemed to close in around me, forming a claustrophobic maze, and I realized I had lost all sense of direction. Time became an abstract concept as the hours passed in this never-ending night. Exhaustion gnawed at my mind, and I was haunted by the ghostly sounds echoing through the woods. Whispers seemed to come from all directions, distorted voices speaking words of malice and despair. Just as despair threatened to consume me, I saw a faint glimmer of light ahead. As I approached, I found a clearing with an ancient altar standing ominously at its center. Dread filled my heart as I noticed dark symbols etched onto its surface, symbols that seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. Unable to resist the pull of morbid curiosity, I touched one of the symbols, and a chilling gust of wind rushed through the clearing. Panic seized me, and I attempted to flee, but my feet wouldn't budge. The ground seemed to swallow me, pulling me closer to the haunting altar. With a scream, I tore myself free from the earth's grasp and sprinted blindly through the woods, driven by fear alone. As I ran, the trees themselves seemed to twist and writhe, their branches reaching out to ensnare me. At the brink of exhaustion, I stumbled upon a long-forgotten path, and my heart leapt with hope. However, it only led me deeper into the heart of the woods, where the darkness was at its most suffocating. Finally, when I thought I couldn't take another step, I saw a distant glimmer of light. I stumbled toward it, my body aching with fatigue. As I emerged from the woods, the first rays of dawn greeted me, and the nightmarish forest behind me seemed to shrink back into the shadows. I had escaped the deep woods, but the terror that lurked within them would forever haunt my dreams. The horrors I had witnessed would stay with me, a constant reminder of the malevolent force that dwelled within the heart of those haunting woods. As I stepped into the library, a chill ran down my spine. The air felt dense, as if it held the whispers of countless secrets. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched by unseen eyes. The dim lighting cast eerie shadows on the shelves, making the books seem like ancient tomes of forbidden knowledge. As I wandered deeper into the library's labyrinth of corridors, I noticed strange symbols etched into the walls, hinting at a dark and forgotten history. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak of the old floorboards beneath my feet. It was as if the library itself held its breath, waiting for something sinister to unfold. A gust of wind howled outside, causing the windows to rattle and sending a shiver down my spine. I quickened my pace, hoping to find an exit, but it felt as though the library was playing a cruel game, leading me deeper into its clutches. The books on the shelves seemed to shift, their titles becoming cryptic messages that spoke of ancient curses and malevolent spirits. As I reached a secluded corner, I stumbled upon a book that seemed out of place, its leather cover adorned with sinister carvings. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to open it. The pages were filled with chilling tales of supernatural encounters and haunted places. Each word seemed to resonate with an otherworldly presence. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized that the stories in the book were not mere fiction. They were accounts of real-life horrors that had befallen those who dared to venture into this library before me. The place held a dark history of souls lost and mysteries unsolved. Suddenly, the flickering candlelights in the room dimmed further, and an overwhelming feeling of dread consumed me. I heard faint whispers echoing from the shelves, and my mind played tricks on me, making me believe I was not alone. My pulse raced as I tried to maintain my composure. In the distance, I spotted a figure moving between the aisles. It was a shadowy silhouette, and its presence sent chills down my spine. I followed cautiously, hoping to find someone else who could shed light on the library's mysteries. But the figure vanished into thin air. The library seemed to come alive with eerie apparitions, fleeting glimpses of faces and figures that appeared and disappeared before my eyes. Books fell from the shelves, and the whispered voices grew louder, filling the room with a cacophony of haunting sounds. My heart pounding in my throat, I realized that the library itself was a living entity, drawing energy from those who dared to enter its domain. It fed on fear and thrived on the unease it caused. Panic consumed me, and I knew I had to escape this malevolent place. As I ran towards the exit, the library seemed to stretch endlessly, its corridors shifting and rearranging to trap me within its walls. My breath became labored, and the walls closed in, suffocating me. But just as I thought all was lost, I stumbled upon a hidden door. With renewed hope, I pushed through the door and found myself in a small room filled with old manuscripts and relics. The air felt lighter here, and the oppressive aura of the library subsided. I knew I had found a sanctuary within the darkness. In that hidden room, I discovered a forgotten journal, the last testament of someone who had escaped the library's clutches long ago. Their words warned of the library's malevolence and the need to keep its secrets buried forever. It became clear that the library was a gateway to a realm of darkness, a place where the line between the living and the dead blurred. Fueled by determination, I decided to heed the warnings and vowed to keep the library's secrets hidden from the world. With the journal in hand, I fled the library, never to return. To this day, I cannot forget the horrors I witnessed within those ancient walls. The library remains a haunting memory, a place where the boundary between reality and the supernatural blurred, and the darkness within me was forever changed. I remember that fateful night like it was yesterday. It was a moonless night when 4 of us embarked on a road trip along the desolate and eerie highway. As we drove deeper into the darkness, a foreboding feeling crept up my spine. The road seemed endless, surrounded by dense forests and ominous shadows. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint whispers of the wind. My friends laughed nervously, trying to ease the tension, but I couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling that something was watching us from the shadows. In the distance, we spotted an abandoned gas station. Against my gut feeling, we decided to stop and refuel. The eerie silence intensified as we approached the dilapidated building. The rusty pumps creaked as we filled the tank, and I couldn't help but feel as if the station itself was inhaling our fear. Resuming our journey, the atmosphere in the car grew tense. Every shadow on the road seemed to morph into sinister figures, and the occasional flicker of headlights from a distant car only added to our growing unease. As we continued, we encountered a hitchhiker standing on the side of the road. Against better judgment, we decided to pick him up. He had an unsettling aura about him, and his eyes held a haunting emptiness. He barely spoke, but his presence seemed to infect the car with a sense of dread. The hitchhiker directed us to take a detour down a narrow and overgrown path. Uneasy, we hesitated, but he insisted it was a shortcut. The path became increasingly darker and more isolated, and the car's headlights struggled to penetrate the thick veil of darkness. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. We slammed on the brakes, and the car came to a screeching halt. Panic engulfed us as we tried to comprehend what had just happened. We searched frantically for the source of the scream, but the darkness concealed all answers. Shaken, we continued down the eerie path, our hearts pounding with terror. The hitchhiker remained ominously silent, as if he knew what horrors awaited us. The trees seemed to close in on us, and the air felt heavy with malevolence. Finally, we reached a desolate clearing, surrounded by ancient, twisted trees. In the center stood an old, dilapidated mansion that seemed to leer at us with broken windows as eyes. Our instincts screamed at us to leave, but it was as if an unseen force compelled us to approach the mansion. Inside, the atmosphere was suffocating, and the smell of decay lingered in the air. Each creak of the floorboards echoed like haunting whispers. The hitchhiker finally spoke, revealing a chilling tale of a family that once lived there, driven to madness by supernatural entities. The spirits of the deceased family were said to linger, haunting anyone who dared trespass their domain. As the night wore on, we encountered inexplicable phenomena, objects moving on their own, chilling apparitions, and ghostly whispers that echoed through the halls. Fear gripped us tighter with each passing moment, and we realized the hitchhiker was not just a passenger, but a malevolent spirit himself. We desperately tried to escape, but the mansion seemed to play with our minds, leading us deeper into its labyrinthine corridors. My heart pounded in my chest as we were pursued by unseen entities, each step a dance with death. In the end, only two of us managed to escape the clutches of the malevolent mansion, forever scarred by the horrors we witnessed that night. The road trip that began as an innocent adventure turned into a nightmarish tale we could never forget, a tale of terror and malevolence that still haunts my dreams to this day. I had always loved Starbucks, the cozy ambiance, the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee, and the soothing hum of conversation. But one dark and stormy night, everything changed. I stepped into my favorite Starbucks, and from the moment the door creaked closed behind me, an eerie feeling washed over me. As I ordered my usual latte, I couldn't shake the sense of being watched. The barista's smile seemed forced, and the other customers' eyes darted around nervously. I dismissed it as my imagination playing tricks on me. As I settled into a corner with my coffee, a chill descended upon the air. The warmth that usually embraced me was replaced by an unsettling coldness. The lights flickered, and I noticed shadows dancing along the walls, moving as if with a mind of their own. A hushed whisper echoed through the air, but no one seemed to notice. The sounds of brewing coffee and chatting patrons couldn't drown it out. Fear gripped my heart, and I questioned whether I should leave. However, curiosity compelled me to stay and uncover the source of this haunting presence. As the minutes ticked by, the atmosphere grew heavier. It was as though time itself had slowed down. I tried to convince myself that it was just an overactive imagination, but deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong. Suddenly, the lights went out, plunging the cafe into darkness. Panic set in as I heard the eerie laughter of children in the distance. But when I looked around, I saw no one. Fear gnawed at my mind, and I fumbled for my phone's flashlight. With the dim light guiding my way, I made my way to the door. However, it wouldn't budge. It was as if an invisible force held it shut. My heart raced, and I felt trapped, alone in the darkness with the sinister presence. Desperate to escape, I shouted for help, but my voice seemed to vanish into thin air. The eerie laughter grew louder, and I could now hear ghostly whispers taunting me from the shadows. Dread consumed me, and I knew I had to face whatever malevolent entity had taken over this place. Summoning every ounce of courage, I moved through the darkened cafe. The air grew colder, and I could see my breath as I exhaled. Abruptly, a figure materialized before me, a spectral barista, her face distorted in pain and sorrow. In a haunting voice, she recounted a tragic tale of a fire that had claimed her life years ago when this Starbucks was a thriving bakery. Her spirit, tormented by the unresolved past, was trapped in this place, unable to find peace. As the story unfolded, I felt sympathy for the lost soul. I promised to help her find closure and free her from this restless existence. Guided by her ghostly presence, I unraveled the truth behind the fire that had claimed her life. Together, we discovered that the fire was no accident. It was a deliberate act of arson, a dark secret that had been buried for years. Unraveling the truth unleashed an even darker force, the vengeful spirit of the arsonist. Haunting the cafe as well. Caught between the wrath of two vengeful spirits, I knew I had to act swiftly. Armed with this newfound knowledge, I performed a ritual to appease the spirits and release them from their torment. As the spirits dissipated, the cafe filled with a sense of peace and tranquility. The lights flickered back on, and the cafe returned to its usual comforting atmosphere. The whispers and eerie laughter vanished, leaving behind the familiar sounds of coffee being brewed and customers chatting. Since that fateful night, the Starbucks was no longer haunted. The tragic past had finally been put to rest, and the spirits found the closure they desperately needed. As I stepped out into the world, I couldn't help but smile at the thought that even in the most unexpected places, you might encounter the echoes of a haunting past. I've always been an introvert, preferring the safety of my home over the outside world. When the pandemic struck, virtual meetings became the norm, and I found solace in the world of video conferencing. Zoom became my lifeline, connecting me to friends, family, and work, all from the comfort of my dimly lit room. One night, during a heavy storm, I received an unexpected Zoom invitation from an unknown email address. The message was cryptic, inviting me to a mysterious room 666. Curiosity got the best of me, and against my better judgment, I clicked the link. As soon as the call connected, an eerie feeling washed over me. The screen displayed a dark room, illuminated only by flickering candlelight. There was no sign of anyone else in the meeting, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Unease settled in my gut, urging me to disconnect, but something inexplicable held me back. A voice suddenly pierced the silence, a distorted whisper that sent shivers down my spine. It seemed to know my deepest fears, taunting me with chilling accuracy. I tried to mute myself, but the buttons wouldn't respond, leaving me defenseless against the haunting voice. In the dim light, shadows danced across the screen, forming grotesque shapes that seemed to mock my fear. The candles flickered wildly, and the room felt colder with every passing second. As I tried to close the Zoom window, my laptop froze, trapping me in this nightmare. The voice grew louder, a cacophony of malicious laughter that echoed through the virtual realm. Panic consumed me, and I screamed for help. But my cries only intensified the darkness around me. My mind struggled to find an escape, but it was as if Zoom itself had transformed into a malevolent entity. Suddenly, the candles extinguished, plunging the room into total darkness. My heart pounded in my chest as I heard slow, deliberate footsteps approaching from behind. The voice now spoke directly into my ear, sending icy chills down my spine. It spoke of my deepest regrets and darkest secrets, exploiting my vulnerabilities like a predator stalking its prey. As the minutes turned into hours, I was trapped in this twisted Zoom meeting. Unable to break free from its grasp, my sanity started slipping away, and I questioned whether I was trapped in a nightmare or losing touch with reality. In a last-ditch effort, I slammed my laptop shut, desperate to escape the horrors within. The darkness disappeared, and the room returned to its usual dimly lit state. I was alone again, but the fear lingered, haunting my thoughts like a lingering ghost. From that night on, I avoided Zoom at all costs, but the trauma of that horrifying experience never left me. The virtual world that once brought comfort now only conjured images of darkness and malevolence. To this day, I wonder if that sinister Zoom call was a product of my imagination or something far more sinister. One thing is certain, I'll never view video conferencing the same way again. The darkness within Zoom will forever lurk in the shadows, waiting for its next victim to zoom into darkness. It was a dark and stormy night when my friends and I decided to explore the abandoned KFC restaurant that had been closed for years. We'd heard rumors of strange occurrences and eerie tales surrounding this place, but being young and daring, we couldn't resist the thrill of a good scare. As we approached the decrepit building, its once inviting sign was now faded and barely legible. The shattered windows and overgrown vines added to the ominous atmosphere that engulfed the place. A chilling wind howled through the empty parking lot, making me question our decision to venture inside. Despite my growing unease, we pushed open the creaky door and stepped into the gloomy interior. The smell of old grease and decay lingered in the air, but something else seemed off. As we cautiously moved deeper into the restaurant, we began to hear faint whispers and ghostly footsteps echoing around us. My heart pounded as we stumbled upon a room filled with dusty artifacts and old KFC memorabilia. Among the relics, we discovered a portrait of a stern-looking man, Colonel Harlan Sanders himself. His eyes seemed to follow us, and an unsettling sensation crept over me. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. In the kitchen area, the once bustling hub of activity, the atmosphere was oppressive and heavy. We heard the clinking of metal on metal, as if someone was still hard at work. Despite the place being abandoned for years, terrified, we tried to rationalize the sounds as mere tricks of our imagination. As we continued exploring, we stumbled upon a hidden door leading to a dark basement. Hesitant but intrigued, we descended into the depths. The air grew colder, and strange symbols were etched on the walls. Panic gnawed at our courage, but morbid curiosity propelled us forward. Deeper and deeper we went, until we found ourselves in a chamber filled with flickering candles and an altar-like structure. The room seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. And that's when we saw it, a ghostly apparition of Colonel Sanders, staring at us with hollow eyes. Frozen with fear, we couldn't move as he began to speak, recounting tales of betrayal and vengeance. Legend had it that he had been wronged by his own company and now sought retribution on those who dared to trespass in his sacred domain. In a haunting voice, the colonel warned us to leave immediately. But fear held us in place. The atmosphere grew more menacing as the flickering candles began to dance wildly, casting eerie shadows on the walls. We knew then that we had awakened something malevolent. Terrifying visions filled our minds as the Colonel's spirit grew angrier. The walls seemed to close in on us, and we felt an oppressive force crushing our souls. I could see my friends' faces, twisted with fear, mirroring my own terror. Summoning every ounce of courage, we managed to escape the basement, stumbling back into the main dining area. The whispers and footsteps had grown louder, and I knew we needed to leave immediately. As we rushed towards the exit, the building seemed to come alive, its walls groaning and shifting like a living entity. The storm outside intensified, lashing the windows with rain and thunder. It was as if the world itself was warning us to never return. Gasping for breath, we finally burst out of the restaurant, vowing never to speak of that night again. The experience had changed us forever, leaving us scarred by the encounter with the vengeful spirit of Colonel Sanders.
Hi guys,
Years
thank
have
you so
passed
much for
since
watching.
that fateful
And
night.
if you like
Be
horror
you.
sounds, please
I still can't forget the haunting gaze of the Colonel, the whispers that echo in my nightmares, and the bone-chilling presence that lingers in that abandoned KFC. Even now, I can't help but shudder whenever I pass by that old restaurant, wondering if the Colonel's spirit still seeks revenge on those who dare cross his path. And so, the legend of the haunted KFC lives on, a warning to all who might be tempted to enter its cursed halls. I found myself inexplicably drawn to the forbidden world of the deep web, a place where the darkest corners of humanity congregated. Curiosity mingled with trepidation as I ventured further into this digital abyss, unearthing the shadows that lurked beyond the surface. Little did I know that this reckless pursuit would lead me down a path from which there would be no escape. The journey began with a simple Tor browser, an encrypted gateway to the deep web's hidden realms. Amongst the whispered rumors and cautionary tales, I stumbled upon a website that seemed ordinary at first glance. But its sinister undertones quickly manifested. My heart pounded as I delved deeper into its labyrinthine corridors, stumbling upon images and videos that defied all sense of morality. Fear crept through my veins like a venomous snake as I discovered the macabre marketplace, where unspeakable commodities were bought and sold. Human trafficking, illegal drugs, and even hitmen for hire lurked in the digital shadows, their malevolence seeping into my consciousness. The horrors I encountered scarred my mind, leaving an indelible mark on my soul. One fateful night, I came across a seemingly innocuous chat room, but something about it felt off. The conversation was cryptic, full of eerie riddles and haunting messages. It was as though the participants were toying with my sanity. With each passing moment, the darkness closed in on me, and I knew I was being watched. The feeling of being surveilled intensified, even in the confines of my own home. Paranoia gnawed at me day and night. Shadows danced on the periphery of my vision, and strange noises echoed through empty rooms. Sleep became a distant memory as nightmares invaded my mind, blurring the line between reality and illusion. In my desperate search for answers, I encountered a secretive group known only as the Collective. Their purpose remained shrouded in mystery, but they wielded a power that extended beyond the confines of the digital realm. Their chilling whispers reached me through my devices, penetrating the barrier between the virtual and the physical. As I sought to disentangle myself from the clutches of the deep web, I found escape to be an elusive prospect. Each attempt to disconnect from this malevolent network was thwarted, as if an invisible force bound me to its dark heart. The deeper I tried to dig myself out, the more entrenched I became. In my pursuit of freedom, I made a grave mistake. I sought the guidance of hackers and experts who promised liberation from the grasp of the deep web's clutches. Instead, they led me into a trap, ensnaring me in a web of deceit and manipulation. I became a pawn in their sinister game, a plaything for their sadistic desires. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, and still, I remained trapped in this digital nightmare. I could no longer differentiate between the virtual horrors and the real-world terrors that plagued me. My family and friends, worried for my well-being, watched helplessly as I descended into madness. The darkness finally consumed me entirely when I received a chilling message from the collective. They knew everything about me, my fears, my vulnerabilities, my loved ones. Their ultimatum was simple but ominous. Continue down this path, or suffer the consequences of betraying their secrets. I was left with an impossible choice: remain a prisoner of the deep web, forever haunted by the specters it birthed, or submit to the whims of the collective, perpetuating their malevolence in the world above. As I pen this tale from the depths of despair, I urge you, dear reader, to heed my warning. The deep web is a realm of unspeakable horrors, a Pandora's box of darkness that once opened, may never be closed again. Resist the allure of forbidden knowledge, for it may cost you more than you are willing to pay. As I entered the old, dilapidated gym, a chilling sensation washed over me. The place was rumored to be haunted, but I didn't believe in such nonsense. Determined to prove my bravery, I decided to explore the gym alone. Little did I know, this decision would be the start of an unimaginable nightmare. The gym was dimly lit, with eerie shadows dancing across the walls. The equipment was covered in dust and cobwebs, giving the space an unsettling atmosphere. I could hear faint whispers echoing through the corridors, but I dismissed them as my imagination playing tricks on me. I started my workout, trying to focus on the routine, but my unease persisted. Suddenly, the weights on the rack began to rattle violently. My heart raced as I looked around, searching for an explanation. There was no one else in sight, yet the rattling continued. Fear took hold of me, and I quickly retreated from the weight area. As I ventured deeper into the gym, the temperature seemed to drop drastically. I could see my breath in front of me, and an overwhelming feeling of dread washed over me. My footsteps echoed loudly, as if someone or something was following me. I turned around, but there was nothing there. Or so it seemed. In the distance, I heard the sound of a basketball bouncing. The gym had a basketball court, but it was supposed to be abandoned. Against my better judgment, I followed the sound, which led me to the court. The moment I stepped onto the floor, the bouncing ball abruptly stopped. Silence engulfed the gym once again. Suddenly, the ball rolled towards me from the darkness, as if it had a life of its own. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest. A chilling voice filled the air, whispering my name. Panic consumed me, and I ran towards the exit. But the doors were inexplicably locked. Trapped inside, I frantically searched for an alternative way out. The gym seemed to be changing before my eyes. The walls were adorned with faded motivational posters, and the echoes of distant cheers filled my ears. It was as if the gym was replaying its past, and I was an unwilling spectator. As I continued to explore, I came across an old photo on the wall. It depicted a group of happy gym goers, but their faces were distorted and blurred. In the midst of the photo, I noticed a figure that appeared to be staring back at me, their eyes hauntingly familiar. The ghostly apparitions multiplied as I progressed further, each one watching me with hollow eyes. My breath hitched, and my body trembled with fear. I couldn't escape the feeling that the spirits of the gym's former members were trapped here, and they wanted me to join them. In a desperate attempt to escape, I dashed towards the exit once more. This time, the doors swung open effortlessly, but the sight that greeted me froze me in my tracks. The gym had transformed into a nightmarish maze, with twisted metal bars and dangling chains. An overwhelming feeling of malevolence emanated from every corner. The gym had turned into a deadly trap, and I was the prey. I heard sinister laughter echoing through the maze, and the shadows seemed to come alive, reaching out for me. With adrenaline pumping through my veins, I ran for my life. I tried to find a way out, but the maze seemed to shift and change its layout, disorienting me at every turn. The haunting voices grew louder, and their tormenting words filled me with dread. Time lost all meaning as I navigated the labyrinth of horror. Exhausted and terrified, I stumbled upon an altar-like structure at the center of the maze. Strange symbols adorned its surface, and an ominous aura enveloped the area. As I stood before the altar, I knew I had to confront whatever malevolent force resided in the gym. I summoned all my courage and yelled, "Who are you? What do you want from me?" In response, a bone-chilling whisper surrounded me, "We are the Forgotten, trapped within these walls. Set us free, and you may leave this place alive." The voices seemed to merge into one, and the gym's atmosphere intensified with an otherworldly energy. I knew that I had to perform a ritual to release the trapped spirits. Guided by an unseen force, I followed the instructions carved into the altar and began the ritual. As I completed the ritual, the gym shook violently, and a blinding light enveloped the entire space. When the light faded, the gym returned to its abandoned state, with no trace of the malevolence that had plagued it. Exhausted but grateful, I made my way back to the exit. The gym had taught me a harrowing lesson about the weight of forgotten souls. I had survived the haunting, but the experience would forever be etched in my memory, a reminder that some tales are not to be taken.
My name is John, and I thought I had seen it all until I started working at Walmart. It all began innocently enough, a part-time gig to earn some extra cash during college. Little did I know that my time at Walmart would be a descent into a horrifying nightmare that would haunt me for the rest of my life. On my first day, I couldn't help but notice the eerie ambience that enveloped the store. It wasn't just the flickering lights or the occasional strange noises that echoed through the empty aisles after closing hours. There was something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface, and it didn't take long for me to feel its presence. During my shifts, strange occurrences became the norm. Products would inexplicably fall off shelves, and I would hear faint whispers calling my name from distant corners of the store. The unsettling feeling of being watched intensified as time went on, and I could never shake the feeling that I was never truly alone in the vast Walmart labyrinth. One night, while working late in the store, I caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure darting between aisles. Assuming it was a shoplifter, I cautiously approached, only to find no one there. My heart pounded in my chest as the sensation of being stalked became undeniable. The store's security cameras revealed nothing unusual, leaving me to question my sanity. As days turned into weeks, my sleep became plagued by vivid nightmares. I dreamt of twisted figures roaming the store's empty aisles, their hollow eyes staring into my soul. Upon waking, I would find Unex, plain scratches and bruises on my body, as if the nightmares had transcended into reality. One particularly frigid night, I decided to investigate the store's history, desperate to uncover the source of this malevolent presence. It didn't take long to find out that Walmart had been built upon a site with a dark and tragic past. Decades ago, the land was home to an asylum for the mentally disturbed, and the patients suffered unspeakable horrors at the hands of cruel staff. As I delved deeper into the history, I discovered rumors of strange rituals performed on the grounds before the asylum's demolition. It seemed that the spirits of the tormented had not found peace but had become bound to the location, forever trapped in their suffering. The chilling revelation filled me with both dread and resolve. I couldn't let these restless spirits torment me any longer, and I vowed to find a way to put their souls to rest. Armed with knowledge from old books on the occult, I prepared a ritual. To communicate with the spirits and learn the demands. The night of the ritual was unlike any other. As I lit candles and chanted the ancient incantations, a cold breeze swept through the store, causing the flames to dance erratically. My heart pounded in my chest as the store's ambience grew even more oppressive. Then, a voice, raspy and filled with anguish, echoed through the store. "Release us from this torment," it pleaded. The air was thick with sorrow, and I knew I had to do something to end their suffering. With trembling hands, I gathered the courage to ask the spirits what they needed to find peace. They spoke of justice, of the need to expose the atrocities that had been committed within these walls. Their pain and anger were palpable, and I promised to help them find closure. The following days were filled with research and interviews. I connected with historians, dug through old archives, and uncovered forgotten documents that revealed the horrific truths of the Asylum's past. The stories were chilling: abuse, neglect, and experiments that defied humanity. I published my findings, hoping that exposing the dark history of the location would bring the spirits the justice they craved. And as days passed, the paranormal activity in Walmart slowly diminished. The spirits seemed to find solace in the truth being brought to light. But my journey did not end there. The Walmart's management decided to shut down the store, unable to cope with the relentless hauntings. As the last employee to leave, I looked back at the darkened store one final time, knowing that the spirits had finally found peace. However, even to this day, whenever I pass by a Walmart, I can't help but feel a shiver down my spine. The horrors I experienced within those walls will stay with me forever, a chilling reminder that some secrets should remain buried, and some places are better left unexplored.